Hey everyone, this is Jillian, and we're going to go over this unit, which is called Analyzing Linear Relations. So, what's all this analyzing that we're going to do? Well, we're going to talk a lot about slopes and equations of lines. And this is really an important foundation for courses you're going to take after ninth grade, and so I really encourage you to make sure that you know this stuff really well. And you know how learning goes. You don't know anything about it, and then you listen and someone explains things and you start to understand it, and then you understand when they do it, but you can't do it on your own, and then you understand when they do it, and you can do the straightforward questions, and then you continue to be able to practice and exercise your brain, and then all of a sudden it starts to be that, oh, I can do more difficult questions or less straightforward questions. So this is something you need to know, just like we talked about at the beginning of this course. You need to know your times tables. You need to be able to count in 2s, 3s, 4s, and so on, all the way up to whatever 12 times that number is. You need to be able to add and subtract fractions. Okay, so let's start with this. Find the slope and the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. And the the 2 points that the equation goes through, the line goes through, are A and B, where A has the coordinates 3, -2, and B has the coordinates 5, 2. You'll notice I didn't say 5 and 2. We don't say it like that. We, being budding mathematicians that we all are, we say 5, 2, 3, -2. So there's a line, there's a line, the line has an equation, the line has a slope, the line goes through points. So now let's take a look at what we're going to do. First of all, they told us to find the slope and the equation of the line. But here's the thing. They didn't really need to tell us to find the slope, because we already know in order to find the equation of a line, we need to have 2 things. We need to have a slope and we need to have a point. And even though I'm not writing this down for you, you need to learn to take notes when someone's speaking, so you write it down. In order to find the equation of a line, you must have the slope and a point. You may have more points, but you must have 1 point and the slope. If they do not give you the slope and a point, then they must give you enough information to find the slope and a point. So let's check. Did they give us a point? Yes, they did. Did they give us the slope? No, they didn't. Did they give us enough information to find the slope? Yes, they did. Because we know the formula for finding a slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we know that we were given 2 points. So we can do this. So let's take a look at what we do. First, we're going to go to our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. As I've said before, remember, you write the equation first, then you sub things in. So this is x1, y1, this is x2, y2. In other words, the x and y value for the second point and the x and y value for the first point. You plug everything in. You see where you have a minus and negative and make it a positive. You simplify the numerator and denominator. You reduce your fraction if it's possible, and there is the slope. Once you have a slope and a point, you now are going to plug it into here. Now there are 2 ways of doing this. This is one. I will show you the other shortly. You plug it into y equals mx plus b. You know that x and y are the x and y value of any point on the line. You know m is slope, and you know b is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. So you can pick either of these points, as I've written here. Pick either point. And just so you know, when you're making notes, if you write stuff like this in your notes, then later on when you're studying, it's going to be really helpful. Or even later on when you're just doing your homework after class, it's going to be really helpful. So when you're in class, if your teacher says something that you think, oh yeah, oh that's good to know, write it down. Learn to make notes. So anyhow, I randomly picked one of these 2 points. I picked this point. So x is 5, y is 2. I replaced x with 5, y with 2. I know that slope equals 2, so I plug that in. And now I'm going to solve for b. So that's 2 equals 10. 5 times 2 is 10. And then, of course, if 10 is positive here, when I bring it over here to get b on its own and collect the numbers to simplify, 2 minus 10 is negative 8. And if you solve it and it's like this, rewrite it afterwards with b equals or x equals or m equals, whatever the variable is, equals the answer. This is work and it's okay to write it like this, but your final answer should be like that. Okay, next we have b, we have m, so we write y equals m x plus b minus 8, and that is the equation of the line. Ta-da! The end. Now let's say you didn't want to use this format. Let's say you have been used to writing it like this, and instead of doing y minus, plugging into y equals mx plus b, you're used to plugging it into y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. If you've never seen this before, pay attention. If you have seen this before, pay attention. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the x and y value of a point. So I'm going to use this point because I use the same point here. So y is 2. X is 5. We know that the slope is 2. And now let's see what happens. So we've got y minus 2 equals 2x minus 10. And then I'm going to bring this minus 2 over, so I have y equals 2x minus 10 plus 2. And then I end up with y equals 2x minus 8. And as you can see, you end up with this. The difference between this method and this method is all in one step, and this method is 2 steps. First you solve for b, and then you plug m and b in. Here you replace x and y and m, and then you just simplify and get the answer. It shouldn't matter. I've never met in 24 years a teacher who insisted doing it this way or insisted doing it this way. However, be aware of what your teacher wants, and then if you just make sure you're comfortable doing one of these methods. Ideally both, but for sure one. And then we have to make sure that we answered the question and in the form that they asked us to. Find the slope, done, and the equation of the line, done, in slope-intercept form. So what's slope-intercept form? It is y equals mx plus b. Slope-intercept form. This is in slope-intercept form, so we're done.